Man, Stephen A. Smith made some interesting comments on his latest interview when he was on Life, Liberty, and Levine on Fox News, answering some questions about politics. But before we get off into today's podcast, tell a friend to tell a friend. Man, can Stephen A. Smith be in some hot water after his latest comments and his remarks on Fox News when he did an interview with Life, Liberty, and Levine? He made some interesting comments pertaining to Donald Trump and the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Well, we all know Stephen A. Smith, man. Stephen A. Smith is one of them guys that wants you to think that he knows more than just sports. And sometimes in the sports stratosphere, he gets checked and called out by different athletes and different people that partake in ESPN First Take. Now, we covered a story 3 days ago, about what he's said about Lamar Jackson, and basically Cam Newton came on there and he basically called Stephen A. Smith out and checked him. Now, a lot of people have a problem with Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith has a tendency of bigging these black athletes up and then tearing them right down all in one statement and all in one sentence. And a lot of people think that, Stephen A. Smith always wants to bring down, the African-American athletes, right? So based on these latest comments that Stephen A. Smith has said pertaining Donald Trump, it raises an eyebrow on what, Stephen A. Smith's ulterior motive is with some of these athletes that he likes to tear down and chastise and get into it on a back and forth conversation and always going at people via Twitter or via his platform on his Stephen A. Smith show. Now, he hosts ESPN First Take, and we all know what ESPN First Take brings to the table. They talk sports, and that is something that's backed by Disney, and he works for ESPN and Disney. Now, Stephen A. Smith is coming up with a contract extension, at the end of this year, and people said it could range anywhere from $30 to $50 million, right? So basically, he went on Fox News and had an interview and had a sit down, and he said some interesting things. Now, when it comes to Stephen A. Smith, he has his own show, like I said, the Stephen A. Smith Show, where he gets off into other topics, politics. He wants you to think that he's well versed into politics and things like that because he gives his opinion and, he lets the people know how he feels about certain things. He dives deep off into it to make you think that, he knows his stuff in politics. But I find it very interesting on the comments that he said in this interview. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what Stephen A. Smith said in this interview, and y'all let me know what y'all think. Roll the tape.
Welcome back, America. Stephen A. Smith. So could you see yourself seeing what you see now? And obviously, Donald Trump can't run for president again, but if he could, under the current circumstances, could you see yourself voting for him?
Quite possibly. I'm not going to sit up there and dismiss that anymore. I think we're beyond that. He would have to prove a lot, Mark. And I'm not talking about policy now. For a second, allow me to say this. What concerned me about Donald Trump and the reason I voted against him and voted for Kamala Harris was because I felt that he would be divisive, that he would create chaos because he demands such a level of loyalty and fealty to him. And that would take priority over governing our nation. That was my concern. And so I'm looking for both sides to work across the aisle from one another. Having said that, when you see some of the things that he said, if he follows through on some of the things that he has said, it's not just about eradicating inflation, improving the economy, obviously controlling our borders. These are all things that I care about. Make no mistake about that. And I certainly would support him in that regard. But it can't be just about fealty to him and loyalty to him. It has to be about getting the job done on behalf of what's in the best interest of the American people, as opposed to yourself, and not engaging in a kind of juvenile tendencies, tweeting all the time and going after people who are really much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You do things like that and you show that you're the adult in the room, yeah. I don't think anybody could dismiss Donald Trump at this particular moment in time, not just because of him, but because of what we've seen the Democrats do. We're not falling for it any longer.
Hey,
the American people aren't falling for it any longer. I voted Democrat, and I got to tell you something right now. I don't like the fact that I did. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't want to hear about, oh, we're about law. We're about a law. Nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. But then you go out and you pardon your son and you try to blame everybody else for it. I don't want to hear about defund the police. I don't want to hear about, what, there should be open borders. I don't want to hear this stuff. And I don't think most of the American people want to hear that. We're thinking about the state of affairs that's in. We're not about America only, but being about America and prioritizing what's going on in this nation with the desolate and the disenfranchised and everybody else in between, and looking out for the best interest of what it is for America. That is not a crime for an American politician or a commander-in-chief or a senator or a congressional figure to have that mentality. I want them to have that mentality. So I think about things along those lines. And I'm no longer interested in, nor do I believe any of us should be interested in listening to a bunch of fear-mongering to tell us who we shouldn't vote for. Why don't you come up with a plan that tells us why we should vote for you?
Now, you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say, man. And basically, man, that's very egregious, man, for you to sit and say some of the things that you said. Now, basically, that lets me know that you condone a felon. You condone a person that talks about women the way he does, and the things that he's said in the past about just grabbing women in their private parts, and there's no ramifications for that. That lets me know that just because you said in one little piece that, I think he was referring to Joe Biden, that you go out and pardon your son. Now, Stephen A., if you was in that position, you would do the same thing. If you had that power and your son was in a situation like that, you go out and pardon him too. But look at what Donald Trump has done. Look at the things that he has done. And what you alluded to in your little piece about, the reason why you back him is because go out and do things that you say you're going to do. Did he do the things that he said he was going to do in his first term? No. So for you to come out and say the things that you said, it just raises a red flag on what your thought process is. So that's basically me personally telling me that you condone everything that what Donald Trump stands for. You condone him being a felon. You know what I'm saying? You overlook all that just because he's the president and he's the president-elect, and he'll be inaugurated in January. So that tells me that you condone the things that Donald Trump is out there doing. And basically you said if you had to do it all over again, you're not voting Democrat, you're voting Republican. I mean, that speaks volumes, Stephen A. And, things like that, man. I mean, you talking sports and things like that, everybody, respects your opinion and stuff like that. I know you have your own platform, Stephen A. Smith Show, where you can voice anything that you want to voice because that is your platform. I don't know who it's owned by. I don't know who it's backed by. But, a lot of people are coming at you now, Stephen A. Smith, because of the comments that you just made on Fox News, right? So, Stephen A. Smith, I mean, I see all the tweets. I see all the people on the internet, coming at you and stuff like that. I mean, right now, it seems like you in hot water, man. And I know you're going to try to, swim your way out of this. I know you're going to try to do the backstroke and try to, let people know this is what you meant by what you said. But people take you for what it is, Stephen A. Smith. They take you for face value. They've seen this Stephen A. Smith before. They've seen you bring the black man down and try to give him props all in one sentence. We've seen this before, Stephen A. We've seen this movie. So you guys let me know what y'all think about today's podcast on Stephen A. Smith. Could he be in hot water for the comments that he said on Fox News? But I see everybody in the comments section, #salute. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, turn your post notifications on so you know every time Simply Ball drops another hot banger, and we're going to catch you on the next one. Deuces.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Ball Dropping podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share on all major platforms.
That's all, folks.